3rd and 7. And McCarron goes down the field, and it's caught and breathes in for the touchdown.
Two things that like that so. Death, taxes, 85 will always go.
Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast for die-hard Bengals fans. I'm your host, Ace Boogie, and today is episode 14 entitled New York State of Mind. And on today's episode, we'll wrap up some of the recent transactions with Paul Dawson and a few of the others on our Final 53. We'll also look ahead to our upcoming first game of the season against the New York Jets. And we'll start with our first segment, press coverage. And in recent Bengals news, the Bengals signed P.J. Johnson to the practice squad after waiving him to make room for recently acquired quarterback Jeff Driscoll, who was claimed on waivers from the 49ers. They also assigned William Jackson III and Cedric Perryman to the injured reserve list. They also re-signed Chykie Brown and guard Trey Hopkins. The Bengals also put together their practice squad and signed the following 9 players: Ryan Brown, halfback Trey Carson, defensive tackle David Dean, cornerback Darius Hillary, wide receiver Jake Kumerow, tight end Matt Lingle, cornerback Tony McRae, guard Alex Redmond, and Alonzo Russell, the receiver out of Toledo. The Bengals also hosted linebacker Deontrez Mount. Pac-Man Jones was named the team captain, and the Bengals released their very first depth chart of the season. And that's all for press coverage. That'll bring us into our next segment, announcements. So I just want to announce and remind you guys that New Stripe City is available on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave us a review. You can find us in the iTunes store. We're working on moving towards another platform. I believe that we have something going right now with Podcast One. So our listeners who are not iPhone users, be on the lookout for that. As I stated on my last episode, once the regular season begins, which is after this Sunday, these shows will be coming to you twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you guys for bearing with us. I'm down here in Florida, and we actually had a hurricane come through last week. So luckily we have got power restored. We were without power for about 5 days. There's some people that are still without power. So luckily we're able to get the show back in and back on schedule, so we should have, knock on wood, no more hiccups going forward. So with that being said, we'll get into Bengals Real Talk. And this week on Bengals Real Talk, we'll talk about the depth chart. We'll talk a little bit about Paul Dawson, Jeff Driscoll. We'll also talk and take a look ahead at our game against the New York Jets. So starting things off, our depth chart released. There weren't any real huge surprises on there. We see that Tyler Kroft is actually starting, so it looks like he will be in line to be back by week 1. We also see things on there such as Pac-Man Jones picking up return duties on both kickoff and punt return. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. We also saw that Alex Erickson, the newcomer, is definitely going to get some reps back there on returns as well. It looks like he's the backup slot right behind Tyler Boyd, who's locked in at number 3. Brandon LaFleur looks to be locked in at number 2. Jeff Driscoll right now is our 3rd quarterback. This was pretty surprising to a lot of people. To me, when I saw this, I immediately thought that there was going to be some kind of McCarron deal on the mend, but apparently, according to the local Bengals beat writer reporters and everyone who is around the jungle, they were saying that the Bengals wanted to do this since they attempted to put a claim in for Zach Mettenberger. So with that being said, I was kind of surprised. Jeff Driscoll isn't the greatest quarterback, but he's a guy that's 6'6". He's a guy that you can develop into a decent quarterback. He definitely, in my opinion, wouldn't be as good as McCarron, but it kind of threw me for a loop. And then the fact that we cut Paul Dawson in order to make move for a third quarterback, which we really didn't need, kind of had me puzzled. I mean, I really, truly, honestly never really questioned our front office, but this move kind of baffled me. It seems that Paul Dawson, and I'll get into Dawson next, it's a perfect segue. Paul Dawson seems to have some kind of character problems where he was showing up for meetings late, and it seems like this was a message that was sent to him in the form of a release. So it seems that Dawson is having some maturity issues. So I guess the message was well received. I was worried and I started to panic because Paul Dawson is a pretty good linebacker. I mean, we spent a third-round pick on this guy, and anyone could have put a claim out there, but the Bengals were smart with how they went about it. They made sure that they did it at a time where a lot of teams had already made their final decisions on who they wanted. I believe Dawson had a workout with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but it seems like the Bengals were able to re-sign him to the practice squad. But yeah, back to the depth chart. There weren't any big surprises. I thought that Margus Hunt would possibly get cut, but I was kind of surprised that the Bengals didn't go out and sign a couple of guys, especially guys that were on the defensive line, some guys that were in the secondary. The Chykie Brown re-signing, I'm kind of scratching my head on. I understand it, but I just feel that he's not really worth a roster spot. So maybe he's just going to keep that spot warm for a possible WJ3 return later in the season. It seems like we're getting healthy right at the right time. As a report of today, all of our Bengals are back practicing except for Tyler Eifert. So guys like Tyler Croft, Darqueze Dennard, amongst those others, Whitworth, all of those guys were back. Said was also back, so be just in time for our game one. So, other than that, I really thought that the Driscoll move was going to really be made in an effort to bring some more talent in. I wouldn't be opposed to the Bengals going out and seeking some help at the defensive line position. I'm really worried about the defensive line. Margus Hunt and Will Clark are going to have no excuses after the season, so they're definitely going to get their opportunity to go in there and get their hands dirty. I understand what the Bengals were doing with the Dawson move, but it really scared me. I mean, I know that we're huge on character. I know that guys can't get away with lackluster attitudes, but you have to, if you're going to do that, you're going to have to make it to where you can't burn yourself. Because if Paul Dawson, Lord forbid, Paul Dawson was claimed by the Steelers or by the Ravens or by anybody, I mean, what are we going to do there? This is a guy that knows your defense. A linebacker knows the defense. Now, there have been reports that he doesn't necessarily know the plays, but, I mean, you're talking about the quarterback or your defense here. So that is what kind of scared me a little bit. But I think that Dawson needs to wake up, man. I mean, if you can't get it now, Nick Vigil is going to take your spot. The fact that they chose to keep Marquise Flowers over him spoke volumes. So I hope that Paul Dawson can get his act together, get in the playbook. I mean, the guy has all of the talent in the world, but the same baggage that followed him from TCU, from some of his other areas, is still affecting him to this day, and this is why he fell in the draft. So I just hope that Paul can get his act together and get right for this season. So I mean, I was really looking forward to him filling in for Maluga, but it looks like now there's going to be a little bit of a mix of Nick Vigil and Marquise Flowers. Nick Vigil looked very good in the preseason. In that last game, he made an outstanding interception. I can start to see where the Luke Kuechly comparisons are coming from, but still, I'm pumping my brakes on that one. You guys can run with it all you want, but I'm going to pump my brakes on that because Luke is the best. One of the best, if not the best in the business. So, with that being said, the New York Jets are coming into town. Okay? So, the New York Jets on offense, they're coming back with a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick. They also have Brandon Marshall at wide receiver, as well as Eric Decker, who was very solid in the red zone last year. They've also got a couple of other guys that aren't as known. I believe his name is Osewu. I believe he's their slot receiver, but he rotates in there with Devin Smith. So they've got some guys and some weapons on offense to test this defense. Overall, I think that this is going to really put pressure on our corners. I would expect that Pac-Man Jones would line up against Brandon Marshall, and I would expect Dre Kirkpatrick to line up against Eric Decker. This is going to be a big test for Dre because Eric Decker is a red zone target. I mean, he had I believe double digits in red zone targets last year for the New York Jets. It'll be a matchup to pay attention to during this game. On offense, they bring in Matt Forte, a very versatile running back. He can run, he can pass block, he can also catch out of the backfield. So he's going to be a guy that the Bengals defense and their linebackers and safeties have to key in on. That matchup between him and Nick Vigil, if he's in there, or Vincent Ray, is going to be very crucial in this game. He's a guy that is an enormous weapon, and I mean, he's playing in a new offense, but we've seen what Matt Forte can do from his years in Chicago. They're also bringing back Bilal Powell, who's a decent back. He's also one of those pass-catching type backs as well. So this New York Jets offense is definitely one of the top offenses in the league, and it will be a viable test for our defense. Switching other sides of the spectrum on defense, they're bringing in Darrelle Revis, who's going to be the marquee matchup of the game for AJ Green. Okay, you can kind of say that Revis has gotten a little bit of the best of AJ. In my opinion, I don't believe that he has, to the sense that the last time that they played, there were things out of AJ's control that limited him in that game. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Revis, but there were some plays in that game where AJ had him beat. The ball just wasn't where it was supposed to be. So I look for this to be the true deciding factor of how good AJ is against Revis. This is going to be a huge matchup. Hopefully he can channel his inner DeAndre Hopkins against Revis this weekend. With him being locked up possibly on Revis Island, this is going to open the floodgates for Tyler Boyd and for Brandon LaFell, who will be going against Buster Skrine in another corner. Their other corners are pretty weak. Outside of Revis, they don't really have any solid corners, and they are the guys who teams usually choose to exploit. So that will be an area that the Bengals will look to go to early. This is going to be Ken Zampese's first game, so it's going to be interesting to see how he calls his offense. Jeremy Hill's coming in against this Jets defensive line and linebackers. Gio Bernard, how are they going to be used in this matchup? And I think that this can be the year where Gio Bernard and Jeremy Hill can get on the same page and both be effective. And I think the Bengals need them to be effective in this game just in case AJ Green is limited. I also think that Tyler Kroft is going to be big in this game as well. Tyler Kroft is coming in after sitting out majority of the preseason, but we saw when Tyler Eifert sat down last year, Kroft was able to come in and be a solid option in that offense, and we're going to have to see what he does. Brandon LaFell should know this team. He played against them various times the past 2 seasons on the Patriots. So maybe he has an idea of some of the weaknesses that exist in this defense. Brandon LaFell is going to be a guy to keep your eye on as well. Other than that, on defense, like I said, it's going to be Dre and Pack. We're also going to be looking at our linebackers and how they react. The defensive line, we need them to step it up. The New York Jets have a decent defensive line, but it's by no means the strength of their team. So if we can exploit them early with our pass rush, I believe that the Bengals should have no problem coming out of this game with a win. So I'll go ahead and do a prediction on this game, and my prediction is that our Bengals will win 24-17 up in New York. I just think that the Bengals offense and defense will be too much for this New York team this year, and I think that our Bengals will get off to a 1-0 start. Before the game, I also wanted to do some lofty expectations, and my first lofty expectation is that Tyler Boyd will have 5 receptions for 80 yards and a touchdown. Okay? You guys let me know in the comments what your bold prediction or lofty expectation for this game will be, but that's mine, guys. Tyler Boyd, 5 receptions, 80 yards, and a touchdown. So going into this season, I wanted to do a poll to see what you guys' thoughts are on the upcoming matchup against the New York Jets. Who do you think is going to be the key to our game against the New York Jets? Is it going to be AJ Green? Is it going to be Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard? Or is it going to be our entire defense? Let me know. You can send me something in the comments. You can vote on our poll. I'll make sure that I put the link for this poll in this video. But let me know, guys. I really want to know what the key to this game is going to be. So I hope you guys are ready for the season. I appreciate you guys for listening. Stay tuned for the next 2 episodes that will be starting next Tuesday. So I can't wait until we watch this game Sunday. I definitely will be watching, tuned in. I'm definitely excited. I tried to get some Bengals on my team, man, but everybody's taking us this year. I was able to get my hands on Tyler Boyd. I also was able to get my hands on Jeremy Hill in one league, but man, I can't get AJ, man. I don't know what it is. I used to get AJ all the time, so I think all of my friends, fantasy leagues that I'm in, they just know that I'm going to get AJ, so they just pick him way before I can even get my hands on him. So I'm ready for fantasy. I'm ready for Who Dey Nation to be in full effect. I just really can't wait for this weekend, man. But you guys be safe. Jump in the comments. Let me know if there's any questions that you guys want to know about or anything that you guys would want me to talk about. I'm open to that as well. But as usual, this is New Stripe City. And I always end this with a Who Dey all day, every day, and especially on Sunday. Let's get it this weekend, man. 1-0. Who Dey Nation. Checking out.